Welcome on into a live edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here breaking down everything for the Brown and Orange going into Week 15 against the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to talk about a key player in my eyes coming back to the team, which is a very nice boost to end out the year. Then we're going to look at some trade buzz out there surrounding Kirk Cousins, and ESPN dropped a new mock draft with the Browns picking in the top 5, so we'll peek at who they selected for Cleveland. But one thing I do want to toss your way is who should start for the Browns moving forward? Jameis Winston or Dorian Thompson-Robinson, or as Reed calls him, T. Robinson. So I think it's a pretty firm response on my end of it should be Jameis Winston, and that is because the argument for DTR is, well, why not see what the younger guy has? I think we've seen what the younger guy has, and I don't think it's any better than Jameis. So for me, I'm going to stick with Jameis Winston. I think there's a better chance of him being a long-term starter over DTR. But if you disagree, that's fine. Let me know in the comment section. Jameis or Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Josh is going with Jameis. Tyman the Buckeye is going with DTR. Tyman, what's the dissent? What's the argument? Cameron also going with DTR. Conan the Elf going with Jameis. We got over 40 people watching right off the bat, so appreciate those of you that get in early and often. Let me know in the chat as Jersey Dog, I have not seen you in a couple of weeks. DTR winning with Jameis means nothing. I feel like sometimes we get lost in this trap of, but the younger guy, why not see what he has to offer? I understand that, but not in week 14 and 15. Even when the season's kind of lost, I would rather try and keep some, resemblance of a winning team together, even though there isn't a whole lot of winning going on, than just saying, F it, we're going to go with the younger guy simply because of his age. So I'm sticking with Jameis Winston.
We saw him, too.
We saw him a little bit this year for a quarter. And that was really about it. But last year, I thought we had a decent enough sample size to get a better picture as to who DTR is. Sure, just a rookie, but I do not think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is the long-term solution. I think there's a better chance it is Winston. So I'd rather continue forward with Jameis. Let me know who you guys would rather have start the rest of the way for the Browns. I do want to give a quick shout-out, though, to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has this awesome feature that you guys need to know about called Game Time Picks. What it does is it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Now, I put all that information, because I love you all, in the comments and description of today's video. So visit Game Time if you want to go see the Brownies, you want to go see the Cavs, you want to see any other sporting event in your local area. Once again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. If you do not want to have your brain work deciding between DTR and Jameis Winston, shout out your city for me down below in the comment section below. We can do zip codes. Reed wants to do zip codes. I was like, what's going on over there? Brent Payne is tuning in from Pensacola. Thank you, Brent. Should we do zip codes? We could do zip codes, I suppose. I feel like, okay, yeah, sure. Why not? Jonathan is watching from Columbus. Jonathan, I will be in your neck of the woods next Saturday for Ohio State, Tennessee. I know I am walking into a firing squad here of probably 90% Buckeye fans, but this week we're going to have to be frenemies between the Vols and the Buckeyes. All right. Josh, it's easy when I see Ohio zip codes, like Time and Aiden. Let's see if we can get, okay, Matthew Spalding, 0. 0 I know is Northeast. You already said it? Okay, I didn't see it. I just see 08, so I'm closing my eyes. I'm going to say Mr. Spalding is tuning in from Massachusetts. Final answer. What is it? New Jersey. Okay. Well, Matthew, look up because there are some drones from overseas above your head right now. Ooh, skies with a 7 zip code. All right. I'm going to say, trying to think. I know 9 is California, 90210. I know 8 is Wyoming. I'm going to say 7 could be Colorado. Colorado, final answer. Yeah, it goes 0 in the Northeast all the way to 9 in Southern California. But in between, it can get a little confusing. I'm going to say I don't like I'm going to go with California. I'm going to call it Colorado. Right? I see all these 4s. The 4, Texas, we're 7. I didn't even think of that.
Oh, my God.
I didn't think of my own zip code. Well, I feel like a big idiot. I was so stuck on 7 being further west. Okay, we're guessing zip codes here. All right, let's get back to our main attraction because I think I'm losing people by the minute. So I do want to run through a couple of news and rumors items for you guys today. We've got Mike Hall, the second-round pick, coming back to practice, which is a very nice sign for him to hopefully come back to the field soon, and we can get a better development and overall makeup or overall a formed opinion on his rookie year and what we have of him going forward. And then we're going to look at ESPN's NFL mock draft. And finally, a mailbag. So use hashtag Browns or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, we'll throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. Guaranteed. You'll skip the line. Greatly appreciate it if you want to support the channel. So, okay, one more. I've got, Chris. Yeah, let's do Chris. 8-7. I know 8 is Wyoming because I used to live there. I don't think it's exclusive to Wyoming, though. But I'd be mad at myself if I didn't guess a state that I know is guaranteed Wyoming. Going to say Wyoming, even though statistically that is like the worst guess. It's the least populated state. Yeah, let's go with that. Final answer, the Cowboy State. Dumel is Pennsylvania. You know the 1-8? Okay, then we're going to go PA for Dumel. I like that logic. Ryan getting a good question, and thank you. Matthew, you got to put hashtag Browns into your question somewhere for our software to find it in the chat, pull it, and put it on screen. New Mexico. Damn. Good one, Chris. Good one. Okay. Let's get this show on the road here. We got 61 people tuned in, only 17 likes. We can do a better job than that. If you're watching right now, what reason do you have to not like the video? I actually would love to hear that. I always wonder this group of people that watch but never like, is it because you don't know what the like icon is? Are you doing it to mess with me? I feel like that portion is much larger than I want to give it credit for. And if I were in your shoes, I probably would be in that fraction from time to time, but when you're in my shoes, it hurts your feelings. So don't be in that part right there. So hit that thumbs up button. We got 26 likes. Love to see it. Kistner with a shot to the jugular. I bet Tyman hasn't liked the video yet. Josh, tacos and Spanish rice for dinner. I like it, Josh. I don't know what I'm having. I'm in the midst of moving apartments right now, which if my fiance was watching right now, but she isn't because she's actually the one doing all the moving. Since she works from home, she's been the one shuffling stuff from our floor up 3 floors. So let's get the show on the road because I have no idea what I've got home for dinner tonight. All right, we ready? Here we go. What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. Coming up on today's episode, we got a couple of news items to hit along with a rumor as well. But the first thing I want to discuss is Mike Hall returning to practice, and then we'll talk about a potential trade that is in a little bit of the rumor mill. But Hall, the second-round pick by Cleveland this past draft out of Ohio State, missed the last 4 games with a knee injury. He has been activated off of injured reserve. The Browns had plenty of roster spots available. Greg Newsome got placed on IR. They waived Kadarius Toney, so plenty of room for someone to come up from IR to the active 53-man roster. Now, we have not really seen much of the former Buckeye. Remember, he was suspended for the first 5-6 games of the season. Then he comes off that suspension. His first game is against the Eagles. He plays the next 4 games, and then a knee injury pops up in practice, and we have not seen him for the last month. But now he is back in the mix and hopefully plays the rest of the season, so we can at least get 8 games of film and stats and just overall eyeball test to have a better idea as to what we have in Mike Hall for 2025. The Browns' defensive tackles, aside from Hall, are pretty up in the age column. They re-signed Shelby Harris and Maurice Hurst. They inked Dalvin Tomlinson to a long-term deal. Those are all some older veteran players. So they decided to go young in the draft with Hall. The issue is, we've hardly seen the guy play. Just 4 games so far, and we are knocking on the door of Christmas. So it would be very nice to see more of Mike Hall so that when we go into free agency and draft mode and we start assessing what this team's needs are, we can have a better idea as to whether or not the Browns need a defensive tackle. Like, we were never going to likely come away from Hall's rookie year with an absolute as to whether or not he is or is not a formidable starter in the NFL. But I like to be closer to that conclusion than we are right now, because 4 games so far, we really can't say one way or the other. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's episode, including some trade buzz out there, as a proud Tennessee alum, it's going to be a fun week and a half here on the channel. So who you got for next Saturday? Ohio State or Tennessee? Let me know in the comment section below, and let me know what a good wager we can do as a channel is for this game. I'm going to the game. I'm flying to Columbus. I've got my ticket and everything. So if you plan on going to the game, feel free to hit me up. We can definitely arrange some kind of tailgate meetup or something like that. But who you got? Buckeyes or Volunteers? Next thing I want to discuss is Kirk Cousins coming to Cleveland, maybe? I don't know, Jim. This one definitely seems like a little bit of a reach. We got to bring back some Bernie heads soon. I'd give this one, though, like 1 Bernie head. I don't think it's 0, but I'm not going to go all the way to 2 Bernie heads. But Dan Graziano from ESPN recently put out an article along with Jeremy Fowler on some of the rumors they're hearing and whatnot, and he listed a couple of teams he could see Cousins getting traded to after this season, because if you don't know, Cousins has not been playing very well for Atlanta. They used their 8th overall pick back in April on Michael Penix Jr., quarterback from Washington, and he included the Cleveland Browns as a potential Cousins destination. So we are going to talk about the possibility of the Browns acquiring Kirk Cousins, what it could look like cost-wise. Is it a good idea? We're going to break it all down on today's episode. But first, I want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has this awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. If you don't want to spend 30 to 60 minutes searching through tickets and comparing prices across sites, visit Game Time for their Game Time Picks, because it's just going to show you the best value based on where the seat is and the cost it's going for right now. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. If you want to go to the Chiefs game this weekend, the Bengals game next weekend, Ohio State and Tennessee, use Game Time and save $20 off your first purchase when you use promo code CHATSPORTS. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So let's talk about the idea of trading for Kirk Cousins. Let's take it step by step, starting with, is Kirk Cousins still a good quarterback? It's a little bit of a tough answer because, on one hand, he has had a miserable stretch over the last month. No touchdowns, 8 interceptions in 4 consecutive games. Keep in mind, he had never gone 2 consecutive games without a touchdown pass. He's now gone 4 in a row. After having a really nice week 2 to week 9 of the season, the guy just completely fell off a cliff. Having said all that, I still could see Kevin Stefanski, if you were to ask him, remove the money, remove the trade, just Kirk Cousins straight up. is that a quarterback in 2025 you could get some production out of? I think he'd answer yes. I do. Maybe he looks the last 4 weeks as something too big to overlook, but I think his connection to Cousins, since they did briefly overlap in Minnesota, and the way Stefanski runs his offense, and the way Cousins has been running his offense, which is play action, deep shots, which is what Stefanski got so much out of Flacco with, and Jameis with, he could see Cousins as a great fit for his system. So, from a numbers perspective, I'm definitely on the weary side from what we've seen over the last month, but I still could see Stefanski buying in. Now, let's look at the cost side of things here. Can the Browns swing it? Yes. They have plenty of draft ammunition, and the way Cousins has played over the last couple of weeks, I don't think he is going to cost you too much. The Falcons would definitely want something, knowing that in some people's eyes, he could still be a very high-ish level starting caliber quarterback. But it's not going to cost a first, a second, a third, maybe a fourth, maybe a combination of day 3 picks, 1 or 2. But overall, it could be done from a draft picks perspective. What about the money, the moolah? Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million contract in March. Ignore the $180 million. It's not really relevant here because what we want to look at is 2 things. One, the guaranteed. He's got $90 million guaranteed straight up. An extra $10 million, bringing up to $100, kicks in for 2025. So the Falcons will have paid him essentially $90 million for 1 year of work. That alone might be too big of a number for owner Arthur Blank of the Atlanta Falcons to sign off on a trade. He might just come down to the front office and go, listen, guys, I didn't pay him $90 million for 1 year. I understand things did not go well, but that's why I hired you, my coaches and GMs, to get the most out of a $90 million signing. So figure it out. That's why I'm a little bit hesitant on seeing Cousins get traded after just 1 season. But if he does get dealt, that base salary is what you have to look at, $27.5 million. That's what the Browns or any team would be taking on. Now, sometimes we see teams orchestrate trades where, the Falcons take on a lot of his contract to get better draft picks in return, or the Browns take on all of his contract but don't give a whole lot of draft picks in return. There is some wiggle room, but that's just a rough starting point. For me, it really boils down to a few things. Contract from both the Browns side and the Falcons side. $90 million for 1 year might just be too big to move on from. Plus, Kirk Cousins has a no-trade clause. So if he simply does not want to go play for the Cleveland Browns, he does not have to. Both sides could work out a great deal, and Cousins could just go, yeah, I don't want to go. Kapush, done. That, and just, sure, not a ton, but some draft capital required. That's just one more thing into the hopper. I think Cleveland is unlikely to acquire Cousins. I would not bet on him being the Browns quarterback in 2025. But let me turn it over to you guys watching at home. Would you trade for Kirk Cousins? We'll just kind of keep it down to a simple level here. Kind of put out some of the boring contract mumbo-jumbo. Just kind of a straight up, right? 4th for Cousins. Would you do that, yes or no? Third thing I want to discuss is the salary cap. Yeah, we're at this stage of the offseason because that's where we are, the offseason. Sitting at 3-10, there's not much of a season left to discuss. And when I was combing through this ESPN article about Kirk Cousins maybe going to the Browns, I also saw this little nugget at the very end of the article. And so what I noticed was the article pointed to what the projected salary cap could be for 2025 after the owners had a meeting in Irving, Texas this week. Now, Over the Cap, which is my preferred place to get salary cap information, their 2025 salary cap projection is based on a $272.5 million salary cap. They are saying the Browns are $15.3 million and change over 272.5. Jeremy Fowler said he's hearing it could be about 275. So that would free up $2.5 million of salary cap space for the Browns, making them just $12.8 million over. Ultimately, $2.5 million is not going to be a major needle mover, but I think we can all agree when you are $15 million over the cap, every million counts, right? $2.5 million could be the difference between signing one more veteran player or not. So some positivity potentially coming on the horizon for Cleveland. Before I get you guys on out of here, I do want to give some shout outs to a few of you, 10 to be exact, that typed me in our previous video for a shout out. I just picked 10 at random. So Jason, Tino, Austin, Zen, Lee, Kathy, longtime viewer, Dan, Camden, Tracy, the wild card, and Rick. Thank you guys so much for watching our content. I understand at 3 and 10, there's really not a whole lot to get up and be excited for when it comes to this team, but I really appreciate those of you that hang out with me all year long, no matter win or lose. So really grateful and really appreciative of those of you that hang out with us for the entire season. Soul Train, what's going on, dude? What if Minnesota loves Darnold and deals McCarthy? Yeah, not this year at least. Like, this would be a question for 2026, right? Not 2025. They could love Sam Darnold all they want. They're still not going to give up on J.J. McCarthy after 1 year of him and 1 year of Darnold. Now, 2 years of great Sam Darnold play, and that could change things. Just like how Trey Lance was not dealt 1 year after Brock Purdy, right? It was 2 years after Brock Purdy. So I don't see a J.J. McCarthy trade happening in 2025, 2026, maybe.
The biggest thing, too, I don't know if I'm loud enough. The biggest thing, too, that I would say is Sam Darnold is not going, they're just not going to let him go out to free agency if he continues playing the way he is. He's 28 years old. 28-year-old playing as well as Sam Darnold's playing is not just going to go away. But I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to start McCarthy or are they going to start Darnold?
My guess is
for sure.
My guess is if Darnold continues to play at the level he's been playing, and this team makes the playoffs, which I think they've actually almost already clinched, and let's say they win or lose just a playoff game, they are probably going to bring Darnold back either A, on the franchise tag, which would be very expensive for him, $41 million, but it's just a 1-year commitment, or 2, they offer him a 2-year, $60 million contract with $40 million guaranteed, which is about the franchise tag. But it gives them the option for a second year if he plays well, and they don't have to then re-franchise tag him. So that's just a rough estimate. I mean, Baker got a 3-year, $100 million contract. So that's about a $33-ish million salary. I'm saying 2 for $60 because they got J.J. McCarthy on the bench. $30 million a season. That's a rough estimate, but Soul Train, I like the idea. I just think you're about a year early.
Baker also won them a playoff game.
Yeah, if Darnold, well...
So it depends on when they get to the playoffs. If Darnold poops the bed, it might go down a little bit.
Right, but, Case Keenum took Minnesota all the way to the NFC Championship game, and they didn't bring it back. So I'm not going to look at the playoffs as a absolute ironclad fist of whether or not Darnold comes back or not, simply because we've seen Minnesota pursue what they believe is the best option, even some playoff success saying otherwise.
I think with Keenum, too, they probably had a plan of going after Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, we're not going to bring Keenum back because we already have the Cousins plan.
Okay, we got another segment coming up on today's episode. We have 39 likes. Can we get to 40 likes? I need one person that's watching right now that has not hit that thumbs up icon down below to go ahead and like today's video, because next up we're going to look at ESPN's NFL mock draft, see who they had the Browns selecting with the 5th overall pick. I'm going to explain why they have the Browns picking 5 and other places have them picking more like, I think 8 is what I had from Tankathon. So we'll explain all the confusion on that front. But like Soul Train, if you want to get on screen to get a shout out, super chat, and we will throw your super chat on screen for everyone watching to see. If you're unable to super chat, not an issue at all. Just use hashtag Browns and we will have Reed pick his favorite questions and put them on during our mailbag. So we're at 44 likes. Appreciate everyone for watching. I'm gonna put Jonathan. Well, Jonathan, you already have, I think, a question right now, but you don't have hashtag Browns in there. So take your question and use hashtag Browns somewhere in the middle, beginning, or end. Randy, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat right now. Randy, get a question and hashtag Browns. All right, are we ready to jump into our second segment? Now we're at 44 likes. We get to 45, and I'm just messing with you guys. All right, here we go. Let's talk all about ESPN's new mock draft. ESPN just dropped a new 2025 NFL mock draft, so we're going to break it down on today's episode, which was filmed, by the way, during our live show, which airs every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so come hang out with us if you want to be a part of our live Cleveland Browns report. Now, I'll open up right now by saying you might be a little confused based on where teams are picking in this mock draft versus what you've seen from other sites. What ESPN does when they determine their NFL draft order is they break the ties based on strength of schedule up to this point. So the tiebreaker for 5 teams that are 3 and 10 is strength of schedule. And whoever has the easiest strength of schedule picks last. Okay? Whoever has the toughest, other way around. Whoever has the easiest strength of schedule picks, well, now I'm getting myself all jumbled up here. No, we'll just kind of edit it out. You guys can see how the sausage is made. Easy. I feel like this is a scene from the Clue at the end. Easiest strength of schedule, and you have 3 wins, means you get to pick last. Tough strength. Man, I'm making it harder on myself. What is it? If you have a harder schedule, you get a... Why can't I not spit it out? I know the answer, and now I'm kind of just melting down mid-exam. If you have a harder... They have a harder schedule than the Raiders, so they get a better pick. Yeah, right. If they had an easier schedule with than the Raiders, and they both had 3 wins, then the Raiders would get to pick ahead. Okay, we're just going to start right here, because that really set me for a loop. Usually we just restart the video, but we're live, so... F it. We'll do it live. All right, ready? We'll do it live. Here we go. So you might be a little bit confused when you see 2 different sets of draft orders because Tankathon has one and ESPN has one. Here's the difference. ESPN's draft order is based on the current strength of schedule. Now, what Tankathon does is they base it on the entire 17-game season strength of schedule. ESPN is not taking into account games that have not been played yet. So a little bit different, but that's how you get the Browns picking 5 in ESPN's mock draft, whereas we project them to pick 8th because we include the entire 17-game season. Does that make some level of sense? It's kind of confusing, but we only have a few more weeks to deal with this nonsense. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about ESPN's 2025 mock draft from Field Yates. So they have the Giants picking first, and they have them going Shedeur Sanders. I don't think Deion's going to let him go to New York. I think it's going to be Cam Ward to New York, and it'll be Shedeur going to the Raiders at number 2. But that's the way ESPN has it going right now. Then they've got New England taking Travis Hunter, the do-it-all man out of Colorado. Abdul Carter is going to go to the Panthers to replace Brian Burns. And now we get to the Browns picking number 5, where they go Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, Texas. It's not a fun, sexy pick. Offensive tackles don't score touchdowns. They don't put a lot of butts in seats, but they do open up opportunities for guys that do score touchdowns and put butts in seats. So let's get to know Kelvin Banks a little bit because I think there is a real chance he could be a Brown in a few months. 6'4", 320. We can check the box on the size. He's definitely, capable of doing the job. He was a 3-year starter at Texas, all at left tackle, came in as a true freshman, just like Will Campbell out of LSU, who was another top lineman in this draft, started right out of the gate at left tackle for this team. Now, there are some mixed reviews, not on his play. Everyone's in agreement Kelvin Banks is a really, really good football player. That's not really up for debate here. What is up for debate is whether or not he is a tackle or a guard. And that might not seem like a big deal, but to GMs, it is a little bit of a big deal. Which position gets more money in free agency? Left tackles or left guards? Left tackles. Which position gets drafted earlier in drafts? Left tackles or left guards? Left tackles. So if teams view Banks as a guard, that's not going to rank super high on their points of emphasis position-wise. If the Browns think he's a tackle, then I think this is a great pick for Cleveland. I do. I like the offensive line pick altogether. It definitely needs to be a major focal point for this team in the offseason, but you rarely see guards go top 10. And when they do, they're kind of like no doubters. Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin, right? Guys that played guard in college and just terrorized people for a living. Banks as a tackle moving to guard, that may not be a top 10 type pick. So we'll have to wait and see what the Browns' evaluation of him is position-wise. But as a player, I do like Kelvin Banks, and I won't have a hissy fit if the Browns take him 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th overall. But if they do take him and they stick him at left guard or right guard, that may not have been the best use of a top 10 pick, because the guy you could get in round 2 at left or right guard could be not very far off from Kelvin Banks, but then you could use that round 1 pick on a different position that would be much better than the guy you get that same position in round 2. I mean, literally, look at Joel Petonio. He's a potential Hall of Fame player, Pro Bowler, All-Pro. He was a round 2 pick. There's a reason why guards don't usually go in round 1. It's just a position that the discrepancy between the guy at the top and the guy at the bottom is not super far off from, because you can sometimes hide guards in between tackles and centers, and they're not a huge liability. It's hard to hide a tackle if they are a liability, right? They are on an island for much of the game. So I do like Banks as a player, and I'm not trying to deter anyone from him as a prospect, but I do have my concerns about the position and the overall draft pick used on him. But I'll turn it over to you. Should the Browns draft an offensive lineman in round 1? Give me a yes or give me a no. I love the idea of going O-line. They haven't used a premium pick rounds 1, 2, or 3 on an offensive lineman since Jed Wills in 2020, and that has not done them any favors. And you got to go back a long ways before that to find the next offensive lineman, 2018, right? So not a huge fan of the lack of investment made on the offensive line the last couple of years. Really just the last year. They should have done more about it in 2024, given all the injuries, and they just crossed their fingers and hoped that Jed Wills and DeJuan Jones and Jack Conklin would be ready to roll by the start of the year, and they weren't. And that led to a disastrous offensive line performance right out of the gates. Before we get on to the rest of today's mock draft, I do want to give a big special shout out to a new-ish sponsor here at the Browns Report, and that is Tushy. Thanks to Tushy, holiday gifting 101 just got a lot easier. Why drop $200 or $300 on a cooler that'll get used some of the time, but you could spend a fraction of that on a bidet your whole household will use all the time. The Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. People who have made the switch to Tushy use up to 80% less toilet paper. No more clogged toilets, save money, and your derriere at the same time. Now take it from someone who lived in Tokyo, Japan from 2003 to 2008 and saw how a country embraces bidets across the board. It's a game changer, and I miss it every single day. But with Tushy, that's not the case anymore. So give the gift of practical luxury that benefits everyone in your household. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you go to hellotushy.com/chat. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com/chat. And don't forget to give us a shout out while you're there and let them know we sent you. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Go to hellotushy.com/chat for the best gift this holiday season. So as I was saying, when it comes to using an offensive line or using a first-round pick on an offensive lineman, I'm on board with that because the Browns have given up the second most sacks in the NFL this year. Only the Bears are worse, and the Bears' offensive line is an absolute dumpster fire. So yeah, you don't have to twist my arm on going Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell. You might have to sell me on using a top 10 pick on one of those two guys if the plan is for them to play guard in the NFL. Now here's what Field Yates had to say on Banks. Banks is my top-ranked offensive tackle, and he has excellent footwork, quickness, movement skills, and anchoring ability against power rushers off the edge. He gave up pressure on just 0.3% of dropbacks this season, the best among all FBS offensive tackles. I'm just going to put something on your radar, by the way. It's not really too important to the video, but you're going to see over the next couple of months into the draft, ESPN has their own stat tracking measurements for pressure rate and pressures allowed. It's never really clear where they gather this information from. I mean, I've seen and heard that there are chips in every single player's shoulder pads, and that's not a myth. And what they do is they just measure the distance between the chip on the defensive end, the offensive tackle, and the quarterback, and that's how they determine if a pressure happened. That, to me, doesn't seem like a great system in place. It seems like there's a possibility of maybe some mistakes being made, but there's no one that just sits in the basement and just looks over every single snap Kelvin Banks takes and goes, no pressure, no pressure, pressure. And the same goes for pressure. So I just want you guys to be aware of when you see stats like this that ESPN makes, it's never, I think, 100% accurate. All right, before we get on to the rest of the mock draft, it is the season to be jolly and to be thankful. And I'm very thankful for everyone that has been a part of our family over the last couple of years. We're so close to reaching my Christmas goal, my Christmas present, 40,000 subscribers, less than 1,000 away. So if you are looking for a go-to Cleveland Browns YouTube channel, click that subscribe button down below. Let's just look at the rest of the mock draft because I know you guys are itching for it. So we saw the Athletic give Mason Graham to the Browns in their previous mocks. Keep an eye on that. McMillan, who's a stud wide receiver out of Arizona, to the Titans. I like that pick a lot for them. I would love Will Johnson for Cleveland based on his talent and where the Browns are picking and his position. So remember how I gave that spiel about you don't use a top 10 pick on a guard unless it's truly like a slam dunk thing like Quentin Nelson or Zach Martin? That's because you should use your top 10 picks on cornerstone positions. Quarterback, wide receiver, edge rusher, cornerback, offensive tackle. And Will Johnson is one of those five, and he is one of the best at what he does. Moving on, the Bears at number 9 go with the other offensive tackle, who's also a tweener, Will Campbell. We'll have a better idea as we get closer to the draft what these guys project to play. Michael Williams out of Georgia goes to the Saints. We got James Pierce, who Buckeye fans are going to get acquainted with next Saturday, going to the Bengals. They desperately need edge rusher help. Ashton Jeanty, the lock of the year for the Dallas Cowboys. Although I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas just goes, nah, let's just go offensive line. They love to do that. Malachi Starks, he's a Dolphin. I'll just say it right now. Clip this, remember it. Try to find a way to give yourself a reminder. When the draft gets here, Malachi Starks will be the Miami Dolphins selection. You can take that to the bank right now. Defensive tackle from Oregon, Derek Harmon going to the Colts. They've got DeForest Buckner, I guess is getting a little bit up there in the age column along with Grover Stewart. So I don't hate it. They had a really bad run defense earlier this year. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss going to the Niners. The Niners need some help they really need help on their offensive line. The Cardinals go with a linebacker, Jalen Walker. They need some talent just overall on defense. Shamar Stewart, edge rusher to the Falcons. Atlanta has the worst pass rush in the NFL, so no surprise. Josh Simmons, the tackle for Ohio State, going to the Rams. I like this pick for LA. Nick Scorton going to the Buccaneers. Started off at Purdue, transferred to A&M. Hasn't been as good at A&M this year as he was in West Lafayette last year, but the Buccaneers are addicted to taking edge rushers. Luther Burden, this just goes to show that the receiver class this year, it's not as good as previous years. We're at pick 20, and we've only had 2 receivers go. Last year by pick 20, how many went? Like 4, I think? It was a ridiculous number of receivers to open up the draft. So if you want a receiver, don't wait because there's not a whole lot of them. Let's move on to the rest of the mock here. Colston Loveland from the team up north going to the Broncos. Yeah, Denver desperately needs a tight end. I'll give anyone $5 if they can name all the tight ends for the Broncos, or just one of them. How about this one? Texans with a horrible interior offensive line go with an Arizona player. I like this. The Seattle Seahawks also go offensive line. Tyler Booker, a guard. See, this is where the guards go, right? pick 22, pick 23. It's not that they're bad football players, but a guard can only make so much of an impact. And when you're picking top 10, you need impact players. Tyler Warren out of Penn State. I think he'll be the first tight end to go, but in this mock, he goes to the Chargers, who definitely could use some help at that spot. Mike Green, the Marshall edge rusher, to the Ravens. Yeah, this just screams Baltimore all over. Kyle Kennard going to the Green Bay Packers from South Carolina. I thought they just gave him, no, they gave someone else a lot of money. Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky off to Pittsburgh. They are a little bit shorthanded at cornerback. The Eagles go with a bit of a project. Remember Amarius Mims out of Georgia last year? The Bengals took him. Very raw prospect. That's Cameron Williams this year. So if you want to sound smart in front of your friends when talking about prospects, say Cameron Williams, high ceiling, but it's a little bit of a project. You need a good offensive line coach to round him into shape. Emeka Ibuka going to the Bills. Yeah, Buffalo, they've done a good job this year without Stephon Diggs by choice, but they should still add to their receiving core. Let's move on here. The Vikings are the biggest lock to take a corner. They have none for next year. They're all on expiring contracts. So Malachi Starks is a Dolphin, and some corner is a Viking. How about Ariante Irsay going to the Chiefs? They need some help at left tackle. They're on to their third left tackle this year. And then to round it out, we've got Donovan Jackson, another offensive lineman from Ohio State, going to the Detroit Lions, who, you know how Dan Campbell likes to operate. He is winning and losing in the trenches, and so he wants to always reinforce that position group. So I'll turn it over to you guys to kind of round out the video. Who should the Browns draft? Let me know in the comment section who you think a good selection would be for Cleveland with that potential 5th overall draft pick. We'll see where it ends up landing. I do want to show some love to the Brown and Orange Club. Tim Green, Mike Dibble, Jeremy Stallman, Slow But Sure, David Botner, Jared Brandt, James Harper, Papa T, Joseph DePorte. I haven't seen Joseph in a long time. Mike, Ray Bidding, Dr. No, Eli Green, John Porter, Scorpion, Max T, Jacob, also not seen Jacob in a while, Drunken Honky, Pistol, Kiki, Richard and James Belt, Nicholas, Tie Man, Paul Anderson, and then our 2 latest additions, Miami Mac and A1 Eagles fan. Thank you guys so much for supporting us every single week. Look forward to seeing all of you guys during our next watch party. All right. Mailbag next. Tie Man, Emeka Ibuka to the Browns. Not so sure about that. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 draft pick, and I think the Browns are going to be picking top 10. We'll have to wait and see. Dallas is getting his questions in. Dallas is a busy man. I love it, Dallas. Oh, there you go. Dallas. Oh, that is a good point. No, I'll take Dallas's word for it. Dallas, I'm going to give you 5 PD coin. Can anyone explain to me how the coin works? Like when I saw the Hawk Tour girl got in trouble she made a coin, and a lot of people lost their money. Who would actually put money into that? It could be explained to me a million times. I wouldn't understand it still. Dale, thank you for hopping in the chat. We got Jonathan Mann here, longtime viewer. David Snyder. So get those questions in. Use hashtag Browns, or like Soul Train, you can super chat and we'll throw it on for everyone watching to see. We can lead off with Soul Train super chat if we don't have a better question. You know, I'll leave judgment up to you. All right, we're working through a technical issue or two. I see Cameron's getting a question in. Just chill as well. No doubt about Dallas. Tie Man, can I get a question from Tie Man? I feel like I don't get questions. Yeah, Tie Man's too busy like monitoring the chat. Get your own question in, Tie Man. I want to hear from you. What is on your mind? What are you curious about? Let me know. I'm here to be the best guidance possible. AMA, ask me anything. We got 70 plus people tuned in. Everyone watching should get some level of a football Purple Heart. This is a 3-10 ball club, and you guys are not going anywhere. That's dedication right there, if I've ever seen it. Yeah. It didn't work the first time? All right. Well, you just tell them. Reed's got a message to share.
If you guys put in a question a while ago, it may have not picked it up. So if you want to ask a question again and you really want us to answer it, just put it in again right now and it should pop up. For some reason, it wasn't working, but it's working now.
Did Belichick get finalized yet? I don't know. Rolly Slack made me curious. I know that he's getting closer and closer to it.
I saw a post either yesterday or the day before, and it said, Bill Belichick has agreed to be the UNC head football coach. We're just waiting until UNC agrees as well.
Yeah. Dallas says he got the job. I know that the last couple hours have all indicated to the two are closing in and whatnot, but oh no, I think he got it. Done deal. Yeah. Yes, done. Yes, Rappaport. Everything. It's wrapped up. Dallas, you were my Schefter. You broke the news to me. Wow. Okay. Bill Belichick. I'm a little surprised, to say the least. He did not want to wait until the NFL coaching cycle began. Did he just have no faith in himself getting an NFL gig? Bill Belichick to North Carolina is wild. He's going to walk into those recruits' homes and go with his girlfriend and go, I recruited her, I can recruit you. And that's going to get a lot of ink to paper. Or it's going to go like this. He's going to walk in and go, you're either playing with me or go fuck yourself. That's kind of a Bill Belichick mindset. He's just going to bully people into playing for him. It's going to work great. It really will. Man, imagine being on the just being a freshman at North Carolina right now on the football team. You went from Mac Brown, old man, to Bill Belichick just became my head coach. I did not think that would be happening 6 months ago when I picked Chapel Hill to live in. David Snyder, UNC to the CFP next year. I don't hate it. I mean, it's so hard to predict far out for college football. I mean, same goes for NFL. Ooh, Time Man. Getting spicy. I like it. Let's do Time Man's question. I want to lead off with Time Man's. David, I would not rule it out because there are so many teams in this year's playoff we did not see coming. Look what Kurt Cignetti did to Indiana in 1 year, right? I mean, Miami was just a lack of a fourth quarter collapse away from going this year. So, yeah, why not put it in the tickler file? All right, are we ready to get into our mailbag? All right, here we go. If you have any questions that come to mind, #Browns, or if you like, you can super chat. Guarantee your spot on screen, skip the line, all that good stuff. Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here answering questions from our live show, which airs every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, come tune in next Wednesday, and we'll throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. Our first one comes in from a longtime viewer. It's Time and the Buckeye. Could we get a new head coach in the offseason? Do you guys remember going into the Steelers game, how there was the first Steelers game 3 weeks ago? There was some chatter about hot seat potential for Stefanski. Browns won. All that went away. Well, fast forward, 2 losses later, and no one's expecting them to beat the Chiefs. But if losses continue, that recency bias is going to be much more further away. And so, while I don't think the Browns are on a path to change head coach, I got to do the research because I don't know, truthfully, how many head coaches survive a 3-win season. And right now, the Browns are definitely on a path because I don't think they're going to be favored in any of the remaining games for maybe the Dolphins game for a 3-win season. Time Man, thank you very much. Soul Train, what if Minnesota loves Darnold and deals J.J. McCarthy? I like what you're thinking here of connecting the dots. I was not super high on J.J. coming out of Michigan, and We really don't have any NFL tape to watch. He played one preseason game before he got injured. But if this were to happen, it wouldn't be 2025. It'd be 2026, right? The 49ers did not give up on Trey Lance after one season of Brock Purdy, right? It was after the second season of Brock Purdy, was it not? So I don't think we're going to see JJ go anywhere. I'd almost say it's a 0% chance. Now, if Darnold plays well in 2025, they bring him back and they put McCarthy on the bench, healthy still, maybe after 2025, they move on from J.J. McCarthy like the Niners did with Trey Lance. But it's not going to be after one season. No, you're 1 year too early on this one. Dallas, next one up on the show. I like Donovan E. I'm going to call him that because I can't pronounce that. From Boston College. He had 80 tackles and 16.5 sacks this year and looks like a guy we could put next to Myles Garrett long-term. Thoughts? Thoughts are, I need to do some research on this guy because he sounds really good, but hand up, I did not watch a ton of Boston College football this year. So Dallas, once we get closer to April, I'll have a much more informed answer for you. But when it comes to adding a pass rusher opposite of Garrett, I don't hate that at all. Edge rusher is a cornerstone position. You are going to pick top 10 this year. You should use a top 10 pick on a cornerstone position, right? Go get an impact player. Even if you don't feel like it's a major need for 2025, I'm not picking for 2025. I'm picking for the next 10 years. That's what top 10 picks are for, the next 10 years. So go get an edge rusher if you love one, even if you don't feel like, I mean, imagine the balls on the Browns that took TJ Watt where they took David Njoku in 2017. It would have been crazy at the time after drafting Myles Garrett, but if they loved that player, then it would have been the greatest pass rushing duo in NFL history. So go get your favorite player when you pick top 10. Jay Ray, what QB do you see the Browns taking possibly in the third or fourth round? Two come to mind. Quinn Ewers and Drew Aller. Drew had a very good game in the Big Ten Championship, I thought at least. So he definitely looks like someone that if he enters the draft, could catch Kevin Stefanski's attention. Quinn Ewers hasn't really played that well this year. And I'm not personally a big fan of Quinn Ewers, the draft prospect, but I could see the Browns looking at the talent, the 5-star coming out because the Browns do value that stuff a lot. That's their thinking. And think, hey, we have 2 third-round draft picks. Let's use one on a quarterback that at one time was a big-time prospect and maybe just needs a little bit of NFL coaching, and we could kind of find that 5-star prospect and bring him out on an NFL stage. So those are 2 guys to keep an eye on in my eyes. David, you're next up. If Tez Johnson out of Oregon is available early second round, should the Browns take him? There's not a lot of great wide receivers in this draft class. So if the Browns do want to go wide receiver, they shouldn't wait too long. But with the way Jerry Jeudy has played, I think it's going to take some of the pressure off of going wide receiver early. And with the hopeful strong end to the year from Cedric Tillman after the way he played following Amari Cooper's trade, I think that's going to take some of the pressure off of the Browns to go get a wide receiver early in the draft, purely out of need. So I like Tez Johnson as a prospect. I don't think the Browns are going to have wide receiver super high up on their priority list. We've got more questions to answer on today's mailbag, but first, a quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. If you want to go catch a Browns game, a Cavs game, Ohio State, Tennessee, or any other sporting event in your local area, visit Game Time today and use the Game Time guarantee, which is if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Cameron, what do you think about drafting Jack Sawyer in the second round if he's still available? Buckeye fans will love this, of course, and the Browns love their Buckeyes because they have plenty of them on their roster. I mean, Mike Hall last year, Denzel Ward, DeJuan Jones, Ronnie Hickman. I can go on and on, really. I'm not against it at all. Like, I think Jack Sawyer is a very good prospect, and I think adding in a cornerstone piece early in round 2 is always a good idea in my book. So, Cameron, this would not be something I'd have big pushback on. Once the season is done, I'll have a much better answer when it comes to evaluating these prospects, because for me, the most important games are in the midst of being played right now. The conference championship, rivalry week first, then conference championship, then for guys that are in the CFP, playoff games. Like, when it comes to evaluating college players, I look at that stretch, those 4 games right there, as way more impactful than any other 4-week stretch. I know the NFL, that's not the case because all the games are relatively equal, but they're not equal in college football. We all know that. So let me see how the rest of the season plays out. When the lights are the brightest, when they're on the biggest stage, how do they perform? Because when they get to the NFL, every Sunday is going to be the biggest stage. Just chill. Trade down for another second-round pick and get the best available with the first pick. Not against trading down. You might have a tough time finding someone to trade up for because this draft class is not spectacular. I've seen some scouts say that they have not too many first-round grades on players. Remember, 32 guys are going to go round 1. Doesn't mean that 32 players are perceived as having first-round talent. It just means that someone's got to get picked. Realistically, most drafts have about 20 players with first-round grades, right? Meaning, doesn't matter what year it is, they would get taken round 1. This year, there might be closer to 15. And 5 might not seem like a big deal to you, but to GMs it is. And you might not have an easy time finding a team wanting to trade up for a player. Plus, most teams trade up to get quarterbacks, and there's only 2 I think are going to go round 1. Declan, you're next up on the show. I think we should draft Ashton Jeanty. He is probably the best player in the draft because Nick Chubb looks washed. Yeah, not going to disagree too much on the Nick Chubb part of this. Unfortunately, doesn't look like he's going to return back to his pre-injury form, which really, really sucks. It does. As for Ashton Jeanty, he is a very, very special player. And while it would be a ton of fun, I don't think that's the best use for this Browns first-round pick. Remember, Nick Chubb is a second-round pick, so you can find good running backs in round 2. Example, Nick Chubb. But for me, taking a running back in round 1, that is like going to the dessert section of the buffet. That's a privilege. As a kid, you have to eat your vegetables before you get to hit the soft-serve ice cream machine. The Browns have not eaten their vegetables. They have other holes to fill that are bigger. Their offensive line needs a lot of work. And so I don't think drafting a running back to run behind this offensive line is going to do you much, favors. Example, Najee Harris. Remember when he got picked by the Steelers? Their offensive line was atrocious, and they decided to ignore it and go, Najee can overcome that. He couldn't. He sucks. He's not even the best running back on his own team. I do not want to see the same thing happen to Ashton Jeanty in Cleveland. Jacob Kistner. How bad will the Vols beat up on the Nuts? Jacob's a Michigan fan, if you couldn't tell. And as a Tennessee alum, as I'm sure you've heard a million times this week, I'm very excited for this matchup. I think you and I can both agree it's pretty much BS that it's in Ohio State, though, because they dropped 4 spots after losing to Michigan as 20-point favorites. But Tennessee dropped 4 spots earlier this year when they beat Florida, but just not by enough. Those 2 things are equal? Not at all. But I got Tennessee this week. I do. You can let me know who you got. But if you want some real, college football talk here, Ohio State's offensive line, which I think a lot of you will agree is a problem with the injuries, and that sucks, but that's reality here. And Tennessee's strength is their defensive line. That's usually not the case for the Volunteers, but this year it definitely is. You're going to learn all about Jameis Peterson and everyone else on that defensive line. And so to me, that's going to be a turning point. And we saw what happened in the Michigan game when Ryan Day tries to win in the trenches in a spot that he is outmanned in. They lose. So I would not be surprised if Ryan Day tries to repeat that and all of a sudden find himself once again outmanned and outgunned and starts to sink as a result. So I've got the Volunteers. Let me know who you got down below to wrap up today's episode. Tyman, Ohio State. Declan Proz, Ohio State. Yusuf, Ohio State. It's anyone but Kistner going to take Tennessee. It's me, Kistner, versus the chat right now. Kathy, Ohio State. Everyone's taking the Buckeyes. All right. That will do it for us on our live show today, though. I got to go and help move a few apartments up the building because my building decided to kick us out to renovate our unit. So that's been a fun week. Jamil Kirkpatrick. Matthew Colpo with a $5 super chat. Let's go. Matthew keeping the lights on in Studio F. Yeah, it is basically everyone taking Ohio State. Just me and Mr. Kistner. And Reed taking the Vols too. All right, well, check out Matthew's super chat. Could you see the Browns trade for Garrett Wilson? I have seen some, I wouldn't say talk because I feel like that gives it too much weight, but some ideas. Let's go with ideas. Tossed out about a Jets are going to rebuild. The window is not where it is right now. Could they get something for Wilson? They could definitely get a lot for Garrett Wilson, a first and more, which return on investment wouldn't be too bad. I wouldn't be opposed too much. Well, for one, the Browns do love trading for wide receivers. That's the way they built their entire room, essentially. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, I would not be opposed too much, but I'm not interested in parting with the first-round pick this year for Garrett. And I think the Jets would want a first-round pick for Garrett Wilson. The Browns just need to find a first-round pick of their own they can have on a rookie contract for 4, maybe 5 years, and not find one who's already halfway through his rookie contract.
To kind of add on the Jets, I think it's like on the brink of the Jets collapsing again.
Oh, it has collapsed.
Literally like right at the edge of the cliff, and the end of this season, I think everything's just gonna.
I think they got eliminated from the playoffs. They were always kind of like holding out a slim hope as long as they were still in the dance and they had Aaron Rodgers. It's over now. It's gonna get blown up for sure. Matthew, thank you so much for your super chat, though. Appreciate you supporting the channel. That will do it for us on today's episode. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and I'll see you throughout the week.